So, Sage is going to do a review for Death Stranding 2 on the beach there, which is the latest game for Hideo Kojima. All right. Hearing a lot about this game. Some people saying it's the best Hideo Kojima game. Sage, take it away.
Best one. That's tough. I mean, he's some people like Hideo Kojima more than others. Some people find him pretentious. I'm not even going to say he's not pretentious, even though I am a big fan. Sometimes you get the feeling he kind of lives inside of his own ass a little bit, but he's still great. I still think it is risky and bold in ways that just no one else is willing to try. I'll be sad when he's not making games anymore. Like honestly, it's such a just weird, unique feel that just you're not going to get anything like it anywhere else. Now, when it comes to the second game, especially compared to the first one, since we talked about it so recently, the first one has some weird quirks to it. For as much of a breath of fresh air and as great of experiments as it is, there's some odd things with certain parts of the gameplay, pacing we talked about. Certain maybe at times it feels like it's taken itself so seriously. But you know what? The second game really kind of addresses all of those criticisms. Um, it its gameplay is much smoother. There is some serious streamlining of some of these systems, like for example, when you get a whole load of cargo you got to get around, right? There's a button. You have to go into a menu. There's a button where you auto arrange to try and get it in the most compact arrangement that it can, right? In the first game, you had to go into a menu and then to go into a menu to open that up and then press a button to do that. In this game, you've got a little radial. You just hit a button, it opens up a radial menu. Turn the stick to that, and then you can just do it. So there's a lot of things like that where you create a lot of these shortcuts that just make things just smoother and less clunky. You're spending a lot less time in menus compared to the first game. And the range of tools that you have at your disposal is greater and much earlier in the game. The first game honestly takes like, depending on the player, 6 to 10 hours, I feel like, to really start unlocking a lot of like the greater variety of tools you can use in that first game. Here it's like within, I'd say, 2 to 3 hours, you are getting stuff that it took, you know, almost half the game to get in the first game, which is great. I mean, it's almost a little bit of that sort of Batman Arkham Asylum to Batman Arkham City sort of thing, where you start the following game with all the upgrades from the first one, and then they just keep expanding. They just continue to add on to it. Tonally, also, this game it still has those very serious, very bleak moments in it. It's not that it's not serious for sure as compared to the first game, but there's just a lot more of it having fun or poking fun at itself and how ridiculous it is a little bit. It's just, you have all around just what feels like a much greater sense of confidence. It's like we did this once, we know it worked. Maybe it had some flaws, but you can do it again. Take everything that was good, eliminate those flaws, and make the improvements. And this is one of those, I think, really, really great sequels where it's like we now are able to double down on everything that makes sense. And a lot of it doesn't because it's Kojima, but it's still a lot of fun.
Mm. Okay, so what is happening in this sequel? What's going on?
Man, so plot wise, this is it's hard to explain without sounding like a crazy person, but I'm going to do my best. Um, Now there are some big spoilers, like right off the bat at the opening of this game. I'm going to try and kind of dance around a little bit, but if I give anything away from like the first couple hours, please forgive me because it sets up the plot of the whole story, and it's kind of hard to get into without saying any of it. But when this game picks up a few years later, at the end of the first one, you were told to destroy the baby in the pod, right, as like a piece of government equipment. You defied that order. And now in the second game, you've kind of run away and you're in hiding, but you're raising, Norman Reedus is raising the child, right? Grown a couple of years, and you get found by one of the people you were working with in the first game, which is Leah Seydoux's character, and she basically is like, "Hey, we need your help to get this thing in Mexico hooked up. Uh, you know, if you do this for us, I'll stay. I'll watch your kid, but like." I can have your record cleared, so you're like not wanted by the government for abandoning or running away with stolen equipment, right? So you go do this. They get attacked while you're gone, and it does again just
Yeah, I think the
spoilers
trailer's
for the
showing that
first.
right here. I think. Yeah, pretty
It
much.
basically does, and there's a few things in the game that I think the marketing does kind of show. So if you watched a lot of trailers and stuff, you kind of know what's going on already with some of those things. But again, just last thing, you mute me for just a little bit if you don't want to hear it. But the child does die in this attack on this facility, and so a lot of this game is really going on like a journey about a parent kind of grieving the death of their child, but in a not a literal way, kind of spiritual way, but also kind of finding a connection to your child again, even after they're gone. That's kind of the big picture themes here. Once you've done this prologue mission where you've connected this area in Mexico to this network, same network from the first game, there's like this crazy like gate that's coming out of the environment. That is like a portal to Australia, and so the main game is you're now connecting the continent of Australia to this same network. Now, there's another gameplay thing: is the map is way smaller than it was in the first game, and in one way it could be a negative for some people. It is actually a lot easier to get from place to place and navigate the terrain. So some people might think the second game is maybe they wouldn't like it as much because they feel like it's too easy. But I think honestly, for the type of gameplay that it is, which is this, I think, more chilled out, kind of zen, contemplative, slow paced thing, I actually think having these shorter distances you have to cover actually works really well because it gives almost this greater sense of like arcadiness to it that I just think is easier to be like, all right, well, I'm going to do some of this and then I could put the game down, after 20 minutes and come back so I think it's a greater it's an easier access for a wider general audience than the first one was. It gets in a lot faster. It gets you your tools faster. Like I said, it's not taking itself as seriously. Things are happening very quickly. Like I said, that prologue is a major tragedy right at the beginning of the game. Um, but also, this game feels like, in a lot of ways, Kojima, on a personal level, kind of coming to terms with the death of his baby, which is Metal Gear Solid. I really think that there's another way to look at the story here. You saw in the trailer that big ship coming out of the tar. That's Metal Gear Rex's head from Metal Gear Solid 1. There's a boss fight in here that feels very, very much out of Metal Gear 1. There are some twists that kind of be like, oh, this is a little bit Metal Gear Solid 2 kind of working its way in here. Yeah, and it really does feel like there's this kind of almost Metal Gear in a way died as like his creation and then kind of shepherded the creation of Death Stranding. There's this metatextual narrative that's happening that I think if you haven't played the Metal Gear games, I think you could still enjoy Death Stranding if you're into a certain kind of weird experimental type of game. Although this game, like I said, less experimental than the first one. And because it's able to, sharpen what is working about it and kind of get rid of some of what didn't before. Um, but if you have played the Metal Gear games, I really think that there's a secondary story being told throughout this whole game that is kind of a legacy story as well. So depending on the audience, newcomer, veteran, Metal Gear veteran, I think you're going to see very different things in what's going on here.
Hmm, okay. And this game, is it an improvement in every way over the first one? Seems like it's better graphically. Seems like there's a little bit more combat in here.
I
Um,
think it's better in every way, honestly. The
okay.
only way that I can think of that someone could maybe see it as being worse is it is easier because again, that it's a smaller like map, like of total ground you're covering in the game. The places that you have to get to and from are closer together. So it is just an all around way easier game, just in general. So people that are maybe just looking for more of a challenge, I could see for that specific crowd, I could see them liking the first one more for that reason. But I think in every other way, yeah, graphics, just there being a bit more combat, which does also feel very Metal Gear Solid 5, the combat that is in the game. So there's even some more Metal Gear feeling gameplay at times. Um, just how quickly you get resources, the variety of music in the game, the number of characters that you're interacting with. I feel like the overall cast of supporting characters is bigger and they appear much more frequently in the game as well. And let me just say, in particular, Troy Baker as Higgs, as the villain in this game, knocks it out of the park. Like this has got to be one of his best performances in a game. Like all-time iconic video game villains. I think he really stands out and does an amazing job. Especially, and again, just like the first game, there's a lot of reveals and like crazy stuff in like the very last couple hours of this. It is a wild ride. The last like 2 3 hours are some of them just it's absolutely out there. And Troy Baker is a big part of what makes it so fun to go through.
Hmm, okay. And so he's the main antagonist of the game.
And he was the main antagonist of the first game as well. And you do kind of defeat him. And he's it's kind of a he's back for revenge, even though he was kind of the one that was coming after them in the first place. But they beat him, so now he wants revenge for losing, sort of a thing. But he's able to just have such a it's funny on the paper, just from a scripting level, the character, I don't know if he sounds all that complicated or all that complex. He kind of would seem like a very simple villain, but it really is his performance that just elevates the character to just like, when you talk about like villains in fiction in general that are just like some of the biggest haters, of all time. Um, Doctor Doom would be one of them, right? Uh, but I think this character like really works his way up that sort of a list of just absolutely. He's in it for the love of he's in it for the love of hating someone. That's why he's the villain. It's like deep down in the core of his soul who he is, why he is just a bastard that is coming after these people. And he sells it. He makes it work. He takes again, yeah, what could have been a very simple character because of the way it's written, but just delivers such a great performance that it just yeah, he really elevates the material.
Hmm, okay. So you mentioned the cast here. So you got some notable names in here. You mentioned, of course, Norman Reedus, who comes back as a titular character there. Leah Sadu, who comes back there as well. You also got another person returning. Director George Miller is also in here. You got
Yep, yep.
Elle
And he was
Fanning.
not in the first game, but Guillermo del Toro and Nicholas Winding Refn both were, and
Oh,
both of
okay.
them returned. But George Miller was new for this one, which and it's very funny because it's just George Miller, and he has to deliver. He's the character that delivers a lot of exposition, and it's a lot of the kind of made up for this universe terminology that Hideo Kojima has created. And I just can't help but imagine George Miller trying to like read the script on the soundstage or the recording booth, and just he's got he's got no clue what any of this means. Like I feel like he has no idea what's happening.
He's in this. Nicholas Wine Refn, you mentioned, was also in this as well. Lucia Morelli is also in this. People,
Luke, yes,
he's
yeah, he's the character that kind of plays the character that is looks very much like Solid Snake.
okay. Let me show a picture of him. People might know that actor. He was just recently in The Old Guard. People say
Mhm.
it's the movie on Netflix there starring Charlize Theron. So this is the character right here.
And
Um,
yeah, and especially that image there with the headband, and then even the skull. I think that's right there. That's your visual imagery for that second layer of storytelling I'm talking about, of Metal Gear kind of dying, but also kind of being, again, not to spoil too much of the reveals and stuff with this character, but in certain weird roundabout ways, it's almost like Metal Gear through this character is like a shepherd to Death Stranding as a creation. It rings very similar to Alex Casey being Max Payne, or that sort of thing that you see in like in some of the recent Remedy games, where like there's like this, maybe these games aren't literally taking place in the same world as each other, but there's like a sort of, if you have all these experiences, you're going to pick up on something here through these characters that's like very clear what they're trying to do.
Hmm. Okay. Very nice. And how long is this experience? Is it about the same runtime as Death Stranding? First?
So I honestly, I don't remember exactly how long it took me to play through Death Stranding the first game. I think it was like 40 to 60 hours, but I played a lot of side stuff, and so I don't remember exactly what my runtime is. Um,
So it says here. So if you did the main story in Death Stranding, if you just did that, supposedly it's about 40 to 45 hours. If you did all the extra stuff, it's about 60 hours there. If you want to complete 100%, supposedly it's 113 hours.
okay.
So it's that.
So Death Stranding 2, I hit the credits and like finished the story. I believe my save file said 38 hours. Um, Now, I also do, I will say, I tend to play through games and get to like the credits faster than most other people I know. So like I'll compare to like the How Long to Beat website. Usually I'm just like maybe an hour ahead or 2 hours ahead of what that says, but usually it's very close, very, very close to
Uh,
what I get. But yeah, for me, 38 hours, I did kind of ignore a lot of the side content until I'd beaten the main story. And then I was like, well, that gives me a reason to go back and keep playing. Currently, I'm at like 90 hours right now. So, because I've done a lot more since I rolled the credits. I've played a lot more of it since then.
uh,
But it feels like you could almost just keep playing it forever, with the way the system is set up. I know it does. There is a finite like number of things you can do, but it really, and I felt motivated to. Like I've enjoyed it. It's also, especially once you've like beaten the game, you can kind of make it so that there's really very little in the way of enemies left on the map.
mm,
You can actually kind of toggle something on and off, which will make it so like, okay, you can make it as dangerous as the third act of the game, or you could flip the thing on and basically make it so that you can just kind of drive around, and it's very simple and chill. It's honestly, especially if you turn that on, the post game for this, it's very relaxing. I find it super relaxing. Like if I don't want to put too much energy into something, it's a continues after beating it to be a great game to just kind of throw on and just kind of deliver packages. I know it sounds silly. It does, and as I hear it coming out of my mouth, it totally does. But I think if you play it and you can kind of get a feel for it, you're either gonna like it or not. But if you do, you'll get what I'm talking about. Like there is a gameplay loop I think that is just very zen that starts to set in once you really, if you can really kind of link into what they're going for. And that's true of the first game, but I'd say it's more true of the second game because it makes so many improvements to the formula.
on how long to beat, so main story 34 and a half hours. Main plus size, 57 and a half hours. Completionist, 113 hours.
So on average, it's even a little shorter than the first game.
Yeah.
And that seems like a good thing
Mm.
because it is
Uh,
paced way better. Like I said, in the review for the first game, pacing was probably my biggest criticism. I don't have that criticism at all with the second one. I think it's wonderfully placed.
mm. And this is getting high marks. Death Stranding 2 on the beach there, generally favorable reviews there. On Metacritic at 89 out of 100 there. Open Critic gives it a 95% recommended there to people for this game. They're pretty much 4 out of 5s, 5 out of 5s, or 9s out of 10s. This game is getting there. You think it's going to be nominated probably for Game of the Year?
Nominated for sure.
Mm.
For definitely nominated. I don't know if I feel like it is at a disadvantage against Expedition 33 because it's a big name attached to it. It's a big AAA production, big studio with a history in the industry. I think Expedition 33 has an edge just culturally because it's new, it's a new team, it's a new studio, all that stuff. But I do think it's going to get nominated. I think it'll probably get a number of nominations.
Mm. Okay, yeah. So, what would be your final thoughts and rating for Death Stranding 2 on the beach.
And yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a Kojima fan. So I go in expecting a certain amount of weird, just kind of nonsense, even at times. And I get when people say they don't like his stuff. I get why. I do. That's an example right there. I've seen people specifically have a aversion to that exact moment before. Um, but his particular brand of weirdness really works for me. And despite that, I still had some criticisms of the first game. But this sequel is one of those, I think, all-time great sequels where it really kind of addresses every issue with the first game, and even I think it makes corrections to issues that other people had that I didn't about the first game, that I do think make it more appealing to a mainstream audience than the first game was. I don't know how much more appealing necessarily, but at least a little bit for sure. Um, I will say if you skip the first game to get into this one because it seems like the better game, I don't think you're going to know what's going on. I don't think the game is catching you up to speed very much. So that's maybe one little criticism I might make is that like I don't think you could just jump into this as the sequel and expect to understand it. Um, but hey, you know what? I can't necessarily expect you to play the whole first game and the whole second game, and even then understand what's going on. So I guess at your own discretion, do what you will. Um, I I I would give it a this a cinema, honestly. I mean, like I said, I'm a bit of a fanboy for this creator. I acknowledge the flaws when they're there, but I really like what he does, and I think this is again just it's a response to everything that was not perfect about the last game, and I don't know how much more you could improve on this. I really don't.
Wow, this is cinema.
That's my thoughts on Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus.
Well, the highest mark we got. This is cinema there for Death Stranding 2 on the beach there. It is out right now. People can play it there. You can play it on console there, PlayStation 5. There. Is it on the Steam store? I believe.
Not yet. The first game was a PlayStation exclusive for I think 2, maybe 3 years before it came to PC. I think the second one will inevitably come to PC. It just remains to be seen how long a stretch of time before that happens.
Mm,
But it's going to at some point. It definitely will. But
right now, it's a
it,
PlayStation exclusive. Right
yeah,
now. Okay,
I,
so
I
this.
I bet either I would bet 2027. That's my bet for a PC release.
Says right here. If you can
Maybe
get
faster, but
Since Death Stranding 2 says released on June 26th of this year. It's estimated around 1.4 million copies have sold there so far by the end of June. So it has that going for it there. I don't know exactly how many copies it would need to clear, but yeah.
yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, video game budgets not only are they huge, but it, game companies also are not very transparent with them. We don't get a very good idea of very like when I have a number for a game, it's not often. Like it's only a few companies really talk about it. And even then not for every game. So it's yeah, it's hard to say. But I guess what the one last thing I'll add is this game graphically is so impressive that it is. There were times when I was like, "Oh, is that just like live action footage they're splicing in?" And I was like, "No, no, no, no. That's the graphics engine of the game." But like, there were times when I genuinely was like, "Oh, wait, is that real?" Especially at the beginning and just when you're looking at the environments. And so that point of that is just to say it cannot be a low budget game. It cannot have been cheap. This game's got to be a huge budget. I don't know how huge, but it's got to be big.
So people can get it right now. It's not on sale or anything. Just game just came out, so it's $70 there. People can get it at the PlayStation Store. You can pick up a physical copy of it there. You can buy it for $80 if you wanted the deluxe edition of it. There. Did you get the deluxe edition or you just get the standard?
It's just the standard version. There's a collector's edition out there that I wish I could have, but I just wasn't able to do that one. But hey, I've still got the baby on the shelf back here from the first game. So
Let me see. The collection edition. Wow, it is seen right here, $229 for that. So
yeah,
probably like
and
two.
that's even cheaper than some collector's edition nowadays with how outrageous those prices are getting.
So this is what you all get with it here with this collector's edition. You don't get a baby, but you get the little doll man figurine.
There is a statue, like there's a big statue in the box that comes with it.
Yeah, this Megaloman statue, Megalon
It's the Magellan Man.
Magellan Man.
That ship that flies around, that's like clearly the head of one of the Metal Gears from the old Metal Gear games. It's
Okay.
referred to as the DHV Magellan. And I swear to God, I have heard they don't during the game they do not say make your way back to the ship or we'll meet you at the ship. They say we'll meet you at the DHV Magellan. So I have heard the full sentence or a full title DHV Magellan what I feel like 300 times.
Okay, so you get all that if you do get the collector's edition there for $230. So yeah, so this is cinema for Sage there for Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Awesome. Thank you, Sage, for that review.